and welcome to tonight's episode of Inspirations. So I'm Joe. The channel you're on is Green Oaks Gaming. Started a little bit ahead today. If you're catching this live, thank you for coming to our Twitch channel. Hope it's enjoyable, hope it is fun, and we are going to be changing cameras around. You can see on that backup camera it does have a watermark. We will be adjusting that here shortly so that we have a little bit different view going on for creating this character that we're going to build tonight. So our program for Wednesday nights is we pick a miniature that we think is cool. So the process is, if you see a miniature while you're, say, at your local gaming store and you see a miniature that you just think is cool, it looks awesome, it's got cool armor, it's got a cool pose, it's dynamically jumping into action, whatever the case may be. Maybe you're online and you're seeing a miniature that you think is cool. Regardless of how you go about choosing a miniature, right? Basing a character off of a miniature rather than coming up with a character concept, creating a character, and then trying to purchase, create, craft, order a miniature based on your character. We're flipping the script and we are using a miniature to create a character. So the reason we wanted to do this show, I thought it was pretty fun because I've done this a lot as a gamer, even though I haven't gotten to play as many characters as I would like because I'm a forever GM. But there are many miniatures that I get the opportunity to paint, and they are very inspiring, and I think about what they would be like as a character. So I've in the past gone through and actually created characters off of miniatures. As I'm painting them, I'm filling in backstory and just kind of making them a character of their own. So with this show, I wanted to take it to the next level and actually do it. Actually build characters off of a miniature. So I have the camera set up in this angle currently for a couple of reasons. And I have to reach for something while I'm doing this. So the very first character that we did this for and put a character together was a sculpt that we're going to do the same exact way, but it was a sculpt and it turned out to be a cleric. I went through and painted that cleric, and I do have to jump off screen to be able to get it, but I want to show it here just so you can see the finished product. And of course it is on our Instagram. I did tag it on our Facebook as well, but the first character that we built was this cleric. And I wanted to really show this on screen so you can just see from concept. I mean, this started as just a plastic, miniature. We now have a very complete miniature that's painted up. And the colors, everything on this miniature just has a wonderful backstory. So we're still deciding what to do with the character and the miniature. We may be doing a giveaway, we may sell it, we don't know yet exactly what we're going to do. But I do want to start jumping in and looking at the next character we're going to build. So I'm going to swap some lights on here. Ooh, that's bright, that's bright. That's okay, we need to be able to see. And we're going to swap up some cameras here. And we've got our bag of miniatures that you can see. We have been pulling the same miniatures, most of the miniatures, all but I believe one so far, from our bag labeled heroes. So yeah, that's what we have been doing. Now there have been a couple that I have seen that I thought those could be kind of cool, but I've really just been, kind of going here, there, and everywhere. And there was a comment that I did a couple of rogues in a row, so do something other than rogue, which we did change that up last time, so we'll see. I want to find something that really just is kind of cool. That really speaks to me quickly. Oh, that one's kind of cool. I got an idea for that one off the top of my head already. That one's cool, but I want to wait. That one we did last time. It's another halvling. Oh, that one's cool. That one's cool. Ooh, that one could be good too. Boy, I'm having a hard time here. Ooh, yeah, okay. So I've narrowed it down to a few. Let's see, I've got 4 here. 4 here. I have got, this one looks like a dwarf with an axe. This one looks like a human, I would say. A human in a dress and cape. A human in like leathers. And a human in little bits of armor. Not a ton of armor, so not like plate mail. So I am going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to roll a dice. Whichever one we get, that's what we're going to build. 2. All right, there is the miniature we're going to build. So let's say I was out at my local game store and I saw this miniature and I thought, wow, this is a beautiful sculpt. It's a cool mini. This is just a female in robes and a dress. I know that camera does not do a lot of justice for it. Let's switch cameras here so we can see. We'll pop this one under here. I'm going to take it out of the bag. Oh, I thought that was a chat. Feel free, if you are joining us today, to pop a comment in the chat. You can help us guide along and build this miniature. All right, so there is the miniature. You can see it is just a female wearing a dress. There is a cape. It's not a robe because there is no hood, but it does have a collar, so definitely a cape. It's almost like vampiric vibes on this one here. But I love how the dress is all like kind of bunched up here. This is going to be a massive dress. Pretty simplistic, but that cape just has me, I mean, it just gives me vampiric vibes. I'm already starting to think of ideas on this one, so I'm going to change my camera angle again, and let's go through and start building a character based off this miniature. Now this is really cool to do because the miniatures have come so far from when I first started to game, rather. They used to be very stoic, just tight. If it was a fighter holding a sword, let's say, it was just holding it in front of it. They were literally lumps of lead with little bits of detail in them. So the sculpts nowadays, they're so dynamic. They're so well sculpted. They've got so much opportunity for you to paint them in such fantastic ways that, for me, starting with a miniature is a great way to do it. All right, so the way we do our roles, oh, I suppose we should pick the race and class first. No, you know what? I'm going to change this up because I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to ask my DM if I roll 4d6 and I drop the lowest and keep those, can I keep them to the side and adjust based on the character I want to build? So I'm going to hope that my GM, who is me, is going to say yes. So there we've got an 11. And to build these characters, that's all we're doing. 4d6, drop the lowest. Ooh, that's a good roll. That's a good roll. Now the reason I'm going to ask my GM to allow me to assign these rather than just roll in order is so that I can have a good optimized build. Another good roll. Wow, that's a great roll. And for the character that I'm starting to conceptualize in my head, it's got to make sense. Oh, another good roll. I want to make sure everybody can see. I'm not cheating here. I'm getting these rolls down. That's why I'm doing it on camera. Not as good, but still above average. I mean, you have to think not everything has to be an 18. 10 is average. Ooh. And 9, not so much. This is pretty close to, you know, a good standard array or point buy almost. A good balance to it. I don't think it's out of whack. So I'm going to ask my GM, hey, for this character here, I am really thinking of doing a sorcerer. Is it possible to do a sorcerer and assign these skills based on this concept that I have of having a sorcerer? Because the way I rolled, my constitution is 17, which, you know, is great for a magic user. You want to be able to buff a little bit, but because it's not their primary piece, I want to make sure that I'm able to play a good, strong sorcerer. And I'll tell you why I'm choosing sorcerer here in a bit. So there's all the characters that we've already created. You can see we've been doing quite a few. They are starting to get painted. We are going through. All right, so the first thing we have to do is pick a race. And of course, for this one here, the miniature, well, I suppose you could do a half elf. I suppose you could do a tiefling and just say that they maybe took down their horns. I am actually going to stick with just a standard run-of-the-mill human because I've got some cool ideas already forming in. So for a human, we know that we're going to get a +1 to strength. We know that a human is going to give us a +1 to dex. We're going to get a +1 to constitution. We're going to get a +1 to intelligence. We're going to get a +1 to wisdom. And we're going to get a +1 to charisma. Now, of course, I'm just going by the player's handbook. So I'm not bringing in anything else. I'm just starting with player's handbook. So that's why I'm just keeping the +1 across the board on all the abilities, though you are able to adjust that now using some of the additional content provided in things like Tasha's. So we're just going right out of the player's handbook. Now, I do know that my campaign, my GM has already told me that we're going to be starting right at the beginning. So I'm going to be first level. My proficiency bonus is going to be just a +2. And now that we've got our scores generated, we know what our initial racial modifiers are going to be. I lost the light. Let's see if we can adjust that. There we go. Well, that one's being stubborn. Let's, I don't want to really swap out the cameras, but I don't want this to be too dark. Let's see what we can do to adjust this a little bit and get a little more light on it. All right, let us see how this is going to do for providing some additional light. I'll watch the camera too, just to make sure that we can see really well. I want this to be able to show up on the camera pretty decent. Not too washed out. Not too washed out. All right, so we are going to go to the human, and of course the notes tell us that humans are all about broad spectrum. There are no like big massive impacts that we need to worry about. We know that they're all about ambition, multiple ethnicities, on and on and on and on. So what I'm going to do is, just like we do normally, I'm just going to say that I'm going to pick any of these areas and pick out a name. And I am going with, let's go with the Tetherian. So if you're playing along the Sword Coast, that'll make a lot of sense. Even though I use my own gaming world, but I'm going to pull the names and everything right out of there. So with this one here, we know that we are going to have, let's go with a Donna, D-O-N-A. And for a surname, let's go with Fallone. All right, so we've already done our ability score increases. Age, we know they reach adulthood in late teens. So we are going to make the age of Donna be, let's do a 19. Alignment, again, whether or not you play with alignment is up to you. I'm going to leave that open for right now. Size, we know that they are going to be a medium creature. Based on that, we know that their speed is going to be 30 feet. We know they're going to be between 5 and 6 foot tall. We're going to say height is going to be 5 foot 2 inches. Adjust that camera a little bit more. Weight, we are going to say this is going to be a 125. It's hard to say exactly, but we just have to judge based on the miniature that we're basing this off of. Eyes, I am going to go with, let's go with hazel eyes. And for the hair, I am actually going to do a dark brown. All right. Languages, we can speak, read, and write Common and 1 extra. So Common, and here's where I'm going to throw things out a little bit. I am going to go with, for that second language, I am going to go with Deep Speech. All right, so that is everything off of our race. Now we want to go to the class. And like I said, this one I'm getting a vibe for a sorcerer off of. Very much a sorcerer. So we know that sorcerers have raw magic. It's just a part of them. They don't have to really study. They just can cast. And so we know they don't start out with any sorcery points. Their features are spell casting and Sorcerer's Origin. We know their hit dice is going to start with a 1d6, and we know their hit points at level 1 is 6 plus their constitution. We haven't assigned those yet. Now we do know that their saving throws are going to be constitution and charisma. Their spell casting, that's where it starts becoming very, very important, because for a sorcerer, their spell casting is charisma. So that's why being able to talk to our GM and adjust some of these is so important, because the charisma I rolled was a 9. Not too great for a sorcerer. So I want to adjust that. Now constitution, I've got a 7. That makes sense. What I want to do is talk to my GM and just say, hey, can I change my constitution with my intelligence and my charisma? Can I have just autonomy on those 3 items? Just 3 items. So I'm hoping that my GM says yes, in which case I'm going to move my 9 to my intelligence, my 14 to my constitution, and my 17 to my charisma. That seems like a lot of moves, But again, constitution and charisma are kind of the go-tos for a sorcerer. I'm hoping my GM will say yes. That will mean my strength will become a 12. So I'll have a +1. Oh, you know what? I'm going to change this up and do it different, just for all the people who have said that I need to put the modifiers on top. Just for you. Just for you. So this will be a 12 +1. This will be a 14. So we'll have a +2. That came out kind of dirty there. +2. A 14 + 1 is going to be a 15. +2. A 9 + 1 is going to be a 10. So a +0 on my intelligence. Just average. That's nothing wrong with that at all. Wisdom is going to be a 12 + 1, which is going to be a 13. 13, so a +1. And then my charisma is going to be 17 + 1. Look at that. Boom. 18. Ooh, lost my eraser there. So that's going to be a +4. All right, so already at 18 on my charisma, my strongest stat. Great. It's going to come in handy as a sorcerer. All right, so now that we've got that figured out, we can go through and get our hit points. We know it's going to be 6 plus our Constitution modifier, which is going to be a +2. So we're going to start with 8. All right, now we know going forward we got to roll that 1d6 or 4 plus the Constitution modifier. Proficiencies, none for armor. So weapons, we have got daggers, darts, slings, quarterstaffs, and light crossbows. We know we have proficiency on our saving throws of Constitution and Charisma. And we get 2 skills that we can be proficient in as well, between Arcana, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Persuasion, and Religion. So this one here, so here's what I'm thinking with this miniature. Let's go ahead and just start talking about it. And we've already talked a little bit about, it's got this big flowing dress, right? Very oversized, lots of like crumply bits at the base. I mean, obviously way too big. This kind of fancy but hard-looking belt area. I mean, one could argue maybe it's part of the chest piece, but I doubt it. Let's get a little more light on here just to show it here a little bit better on screen. See if that helps a little bit. This big high popped collar. The hair is just combed straight. Now she's not holding any daggers or anything. She got a little bit of like vambraces on, but no weapons. And then this cape with this very so it makes me think of 2 things. It makes me think like very vampiric, but also kind of manta ray-ish. So what I'm thinking is this gal here is so goth. Absolutely goth. She is the type of character who listens to typo negative. Of course, that's the medieval version of typo negative, and has this kind of, she's got this sorceress nature about her. She doesn't quite understand. She thinks, well, maybe I'm just like a vamp. Maybe I'm a vampire. Maybe there's vampiric things in my history. My family has something, you know, something in the past about going through. And that makes sense for someone who does not quite understand the, you know, draconic bloodline or wild magic or whatever the case may be. But it's something that this character really plays up and kind of has gotten into this thing that somewhere along the lines, mom loved a vampire and I'm the result. So that's the vibe I'm going for. I think it really suits the sculpt and could be a lot of fun to role play at the table. I'm just an absolute goth of an adventurer. So that's kind of what I'm going through. And that's why I chose the deep speech. You know, they're studying everything they can occult. So for that, the skills that I'm going to choose are actually going to be religion, because definitely studying occult. And I would say at that point a little bit of arcana. Those are the two that I'm going to go with. Trying to understand arcana and connect the dots between the, you know, that goth background, that vampiric background, and their use of magic. So, starting equipment. Wow, I've already used up almost half an hour. I hope this is just as funny for you as it is for me as we create our goth sorcerer. Wow. Sorceress. Okay, so let's go through and start doing some equipment. We start with a light crossbow and 20 bolts or any simple weapon. So the figure doesn't show any weapons on them, but I'm going to defer and say that the weapons are carried kind of behind on the back of that big strong belt. They are carried behind the character under the cloak. And so because of that, I do like the thought of some range. So I'm going to do a light crossbow and 20 bolts. We get a component pouch or an arcane focus. So this one here, again, they're not holding anything, but I do like the thought of a focus. This hand here is kind of open, so I'm going to say that there is an arcane focus, and it is a crystal on a necklace, and the sorcerer wears the necklace like wrapped up around the wrist so that the crystal is always there in hand, right? So it's a necklace, but they've always got it in hand, and that way they can kind of hide it amongst the vambrace that they are wearing. And so I'm going to make a little note. Crystal on necklace, on wrist. All right, let's see. And then we get a Dungeoneer's pack or an Explorer's pack. Now this one here does not have either of those packs, so I'm just going to lightly jot down here Explorer's pack, and then additionally 2 daggers, which again I'm going to have on the belt. So then in the weapons I'm going to put light crossbow, dagger, dagger, and then we'll start assigning in the damages and attack bonuses. Once we get there, it's going to be a +2, +2, +2. All right. All right, now, so spell slots. We know that first level, you get 4 cantrips. Now, I do have the spell sheet here, so I'm going to write down here just lightly that we have 4. And then we do know that, let's see, we'll have 2 spell slots of first level. So we'll pop that in there. We know that our spell casting ability is going to be a charisma. Our spell save DC is going to be 8 plus the proficiency, so that's +2, plus your charisma. So we're at 10 plus charisma modifier is going to be 4. So we've got a 14. And then your spell attack bonus is going to be your proficiency plus charisma. So that's going to be a plus 6. Because our proficiency is plus 2, charisma modifier bonus at 18 is plus 4. Righty, so spellcasting class is of course going to be Sorcerer. And then of course for our Sorcerer's Origin, until we get to 2nd level, that's not as important. So not quite as important for us to work on that right now. Now we do want to make sure that as we're going through and leveling up, we'll want to be able to talk about the Sorcerer's Origin. Again, in the player's handbook, it really talks about dragon. It does talk about that draconic bloodline. It also covers wild magic. So there are a couple of choices that you can choose. For this one here, I actually want to say Boy, this is so tough. I'm so tempted to go grab Tasha's, but I'm not going to. We're going to stick with the Draconic. We're going to stick with Draconic. And I am going to go with a... So that means we also get to add Draconic language. And we have double proficiency. When interacting via charisma checks with dragons. All right. We also have a hit point maximum increase by 1. So that means our hit point maximum is a +1 there. Parts of your skin are covered by a thin sheen of dragon-like scales, which could be why they're wearing the vambraces, right? Because those scales are on the arms. When you're not wearing armor, your armor equals 13 plus dex, which is good because I want to keep them in just no armor, just their clothing. So that'll be a 15 natural armor. So that's really pretty good. And then, yeah, so let's make sure we mark down Draconic, Bloodline, and we will say let's go with, I was hoping for something a little more gothy, a little more, yeah, let's do silver for cold, right? That's pretty, that'll be pretty good, I think. That'll be pretty good. All right, so now we need to go back through. And where are we on time? Oh, we got plenty of time. We got plenty of time. Let's get our weapons all figured out here. We've got all of our, no, we've got all of our weapons done. The Explorer's Pack is what we want to explore here a little bit. Get it? All right, so the Explorer's pack includes a backpack, a bedroll, a mess kit, a tinderbox, 10 torches, 10 days of rations, and a water skin. It also has 50 feet of hempen rope strapped to the side of it. So pretty decent. Now this miniature does not have a backpack or any of those items associated with it. So as a player, I don't not want to have those to start, but in the same token, I'm going to say that I would rather ditch it and have 10 gold pieces to start. So I am not going to take the Explorer's pack. I'm going to instead take the gold pieces. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want this to be a very young, almost naive type of character who is not really prepared to go on adventures. I'm going to play that up a little bit while role-playing. So yeah, it could be a lot of fun. Let's go back into as we get into our spell casting. Let's get that wrapped up. Ooh. Need a little bit more room here to flip the pages. All right, here we go. Let's go into our sorcerer spells. We know we start with 4 cantrips. Now this is our goth character of Donna, and we know there's cold already. So one of them that just coming to mind is Chill Touch. It's there. Let's do it. Chill Touch. They're just learning, they're just experimenting, they're just trying. I love Ray of Frost. Now, being protective is going to be important. I'm going to choose Blade Ward. And then I want something that's going to be a little more, it's going to be a little more opportunistic for me to play with. And so I'm debating between Dancing Lights and Light. Because this character is a human, there's no dark vision, nothing like that. Light is going to be important. I'm going to go with Dancing Lights. While pining away in their room, working on Dancing Lights, listening to typo, negative, just making the lights dance to the beat, wallowing in self-doubt and self-despair. I can envision it. All right, let's go to our first level. We get at 2 spells here. Let's go with, this is where it starts really meaning something. Let's go with Charm Person. Think about, that iconic Dracula charming kind of piece. I can see this character really trying to charm person, especially with that super high charisma. Charm person could be very, very important. And then how about I'm going to go Ray of Sickness. Because it's all about making the others see. This sorceress is just very much kind of out to make sure if someone challenges them, she is able to really dish it out right back to them in a strong, very vampiric, vibey type of way. So even though it's draconic bloodline, just uber tapped into that vampiric kind of frame of mind and thought process. So I'm really happy with that. Now I do want to go back a bit and start looking at our personality parts and pieces, because that's super important. So if you're a big alignment person, what would be a great alignment for this character? So I'm going to go off with chaotic neutral, I think. Wanting to be free. Yeah, not super worried about, the impacts of hurting someone else. They're not a great person, but not irredeemable. And remember, for me, I start this way. So that doesn't mean they're going to be played that way forever. That's just when they come to the table, that's who they are, why they are the way they are. And then hopefully that alignment changes over the course of play, hopefully because of the teammates. So now let's pick a background. So backgrounds are some of my favorite things when I'm doing this one here. I don't want them to be an acolyte. I don't want them to be a charlatan. Definitely not a criminal. Maybe wanting to be a criminal, but not. And not an entertainer, not a folk hero. I think this is someone who has got a very different and complex background. Boy, what could we choose? Yeah, heck, why not? We are going to choose the sage background. I was hesitant on this at first just because, it's very learned, right? And I want to avoid that to some degree. But like I said, they're diving into occult and religious and things like that, so it does make sense. So skill proficiency, we've got Arcana and History. And languages, we get 2 of our choice. So I am going to add actually Sylvan. And let's do Abyssal. I think that covers a good spectrum. And then some more equipment here. We get a bottle of ink, a quill, small knife, letter from a dead colleague, posing a question. Donna hasn't been able to answer. Now this is where it says a set of common clothes. And a pouch containing 10 gold pieces. Now because I already talked to my GM and they allowed me to take away that pack, I'm going to sell back 2 gold pieces just because it's an arbitrary number. So instead of 20, I'm going to have 18, and I'm going to put a fancy cape. So a very fancy cape. Now we do get to pick a feature or a specialty to our background. So back here in the backstory, I'm going to just put a quick note here for background. We get to roll a d8. We got a 5, and that's professor. I don't know if that really works with this or not. Are they a professor? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say This is one where I've just got to talk to my GM and say, hey, it's going to make more sense if they volunteered to do research. So background specialty is as an occult researcher. I just think it works well with the backstory overall. So with that, let's go through and do our personality traits. So we got a 2, which means I've read every book in the world's greatest libraries, or I'd like to boast that I have. I like that one. I kind of like that one. It's a little sassy, right? Someone who feels they are the expert on the occult. I've read it all. I like that one. That one works really good. And I also think it kind of plays into that they think they're more prepared than they are. Remember, we don't have our equipment yet. We can go and buy it. We kept the gold so that we can go and buy it. But when this character first arrives at the table, I want to set an impression. I lost my place. All right, let's do the ideal. For that, we need a D6. And that one is knowledge. The path to power and self-improvement is through knowledge. Boy, that just rings true for this character. And then a bond, also a D6, another 1. It is my duty to protect my students. Boy, that one just is not fitting. That one is just not fitting. I like I've been searching my whole life for the answer to a certain question. So I'm going to self-pick that one for the bond. And then for the flaw, I'm easily distracted by the promise of information. I like that one. All right. So Donna Falone, a first level sorcerer who is chaotic neutral and actually kind of surprisingly already pretty well concept thought out. So we've just got to go through and pick a little bit of information on the background here. And so I've already got some good ideas. So Donna, I suppose we'll have to think and finalize how we want that pronounced at the table. Do we want it Donna? I'm used to Donna being spelled D-O-N-N-A. This is just D-O-N-A. Donna. I mean, we'll just see what some of the other table mates pronounce it as. We'll say was raised an orphan, and served the local library, as a ward, right? Not too uncommon, comfortable enough, not, you know, an orphan that's like destitute out on the streets, anything like that. Just a kid in the system and kind of living life. As they're researching, started to show signs of magic, or as growing, I suppose, as growing up. And connected it to occult lore and is searching for the connection. Now this could be a fun thing for my GM, since the character actually has draconic background. As I give them this information, you know, this character is super believing that there is an occult, some type of an occult background with vampires and undead, because they've got chill touch and they can cast Ray of Frost. They've got Blade Ward. And they're able to manipulate these dancing lights. They're able to charm person, and they can cast this Ray of Sickness. So there's a lot of different things that are kind of going on and making this character believe that they are a, you know, kind of touched by a vampire somewhere in their history. So they're digging in and looking for this. But what do you know? It's actually those scales you have under the vam braces. Yeah, that silver dragon is what actually is going on. But maybe it gives our GM an opportunity to say that there, you know, through the adventures, there's pictures that look very similar to Dona and are from, you know, 1,000 years ago. So kind of allude to, and that's what I would do as a GM. I would play with some of those a little bit. But this allows Dona as a head researcher for the library, has decided to adventure to allow access to more occult lore. So Dana is just super into the occult, into horror stories, into digging up ancient religion and occult type of options, and really looking for a way to connect their current sorceress nature to an occult background. So I'm envisioning this miniature just uber goth, right? Just uber goth. And when you put that against, you know, some of the other characters that are going to be on the table, I want that to be felt. I want it to be seen. So I'm envisioning this this miniature being painted with the red lined black cape, a very fancy dress that's not quite right, doesn't fit exactly right because it's not actually theirs, but it's quaint. It's so if you would comparatively say it's Victorian now, you know, for them, it's this ancient dress, black hair, bright red lipstick, pale skin, and yeah, I'm really gonna dress this one up. The beautiful thing is there isn't a whole lot to it. The belt is going to be a strong leather to be able to hold that light crossbow, the bolts, and the daggers. So not a whole lot to the miniature, but what it lacks in a ton of sculpted details, we're going to make up for it in both the fantastic paint job and the details we've provided to the character, so that when we sit at the table for the first time and begin playing as Donna Falone, the occult specialty sorceress, it's going to absolutely feel like an occult sorceress that is absolutely believing that they've got a vampiric background. There's going to be a big focus on I don't care if I hurt you, as long as I get what I want. I'm looking for more information, more history and background into my occult origins. And yeah, these bits of scales that I've got on my arms, I don't know what that's all about, but I'm going to try to hide them because I don't want to acknowledge it, because I am the gothiest goth you can imagine. So overall, I think it's a cool concept for a character, all based off of a pretty decent sculpt that's simplistic but beautiful and tells a lot of story on its own. So there we go, making a character. Making a character. Now I still have the ranger to paint. I have painted one of the rogues, the Halfling Rogue. So this is going to get right in line to be painted. Let me know what you think for the miniatures as we get these painted. Should we use them as prizes when we hit certain milestones? Should we pop them on our eBay or Instagram up for sale? Would you be interested in a concept like this, in receiving a miniature? And if so, what would you like to be able to do with that? Oh, it looks like we've got a little bit of buffering going on. I do apologize if we've had some buffering. I haven't seen any notices until just now. Well, I do apologize for that. Let's go through and see if we can't speed that up. Well, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, about 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so I'm going to have to go through and just check all my proxy settings, make sure that we don't have anything that is out of whack, because last thing I want to do is provide a horrible stream for you. So if you're able to watch us, thank you. If not, be sure to check it out on the flip side, and we'll dig in and see what's going on. Have a fantastic night, and until our next stream, let us know, where will your adventures take you?